Jason was nervous. He had been working as a negotiator for human and alien relations for almost 5 years, and it was always tricky. He was good at his job, but today, everything felt off. The meeting was supposed to be a routine diplomatic session between Earth and the Valeri, an alien race from the distant Zeta sector. It was supposed to be just another boring day at the office. But when Jason walked into the Grand Valeri meeting hall, he had no idea what was about to happen. The room was huge, with high, domed ceilings that shimmered with the light of 1,000 glowing crystals. Jason was used to the bright, clean architecture of alien embassies, but he still couldn't help but feel small in spaces like this. The Valeri weren't the tallest species in the galaxy, but they had a way of making their presence felt. They moved with an air of authority, as though their culture had been in charge of the galaxy for thousands of years. As Jason stepped forward, his eyes landed on her. A young Valeri woman standing at the head of the table, her striking purple, skin glowing in the light. She had short silver hair and bright yellow eyes that seemed to see right through him. This wasn't just any Valeri. This was Lyra, the daughter of the Valeri Queen, and the heir to their vast empire. Jason had read about her in the briefing notes, but seeing her in person was a different experience. Lyra wasn't like most diplomats. Her posture was confident, but her gaze was intense. She didn't smile, nor did she make small talk. She just stared at him, as if waiting for him to say something. "Mr. Jason Miller." She spoke with a soft but commanding voice. "I trust you understand the importance of this meeting." Jason nodded, doing his best to hide how nervous he was. "Yes, Your Highness," he said. "I'm fully aware." The meeting began in the usual way, with formal introductions and discussions about trade agreements and military alliances. Jason, like usual, tried to keep the conversation moving forward while being careful with his words. He had dealt with many alien diplomats before, but none quite like the Valeri. They were proud, direct, and not afraid to challenge anything. They didn't like, however, it was during one of the breaks that things went wrong. Jason was just sipping his coffee when a servant brought over a tray of strange-looking fruits. He had never seen them before, but they looked delicious bright, blue and glowing faintly. Without thinking, he picked one up and took a bite. Almost immediately, he felt dizzy. His head spun and his vision blurred. Jason staggered back, trying to steady himself, but everything around him felt off. He reached out for the nearest table to catch himself, but his hand brushed against Lyra's arm. The touch was accidental. But in that moment, something strange happened. Lyra's eyes widened and she stepped back quickly, her hand instinctively going to her stomach. Jason's heart raced. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to," but before he could finish, Lyra gave him a sharp look. Her expression was unreadable, but Jason could tell she wasn't happy. She took a deep breath and straightened herself. "I'm fine," she said coldly, but there was a slight tremor in her voice. "I will finish this meeting. I suggest you stay focused, Mr. Miller." Jason nodded, still feeling the dizziness from whatever that fruit had been. He tried to keep his thoughts clear, but his mind was foggy. As the meeting went on, he did his best to concentrate, but the strange sensation in his head made everything harder than usual. He knew something had gone wrong, but he didn't know what. Was it the fruit? Was it the touch? When the meeting finally ended, Jason was relieved. His head still felt strange, but he tried to remain professional as he gathered his things. He said his goodbyes to the other diplomats and started walking toward the door, when a sharp voice called out from behind him. "Mr. Miller," Lyra said, her tone now much colder than before. "A word, please." Jason turned around, trying to act normal, despite the pounding in his head. "Of course, Your Highness." She was standing in the middle of the room now, her eyes locked onto his. "You've done something foolish," she said, her voice almost a whisper. But still filled with authority, Jason blinked. I'm sorry. I didn't mean not your apology, Mr. Miller," Lyra interrupted. "It's the consequences you should be worried about." Before Jason could ask what she meant, her eyes shifted downward, and she placed her hand on her stomach. It was then that Jason realized what she was saying. His heart sank as a rush of panic hit him. It made a terrible mistake. You're pregnant?" he asked, almost in disbelief. Lyra nodded, her eyes hardening. It seems your accidental touch has led to something I didn't expect. She paused, then added, You're going to fix this, Mr. Miller. And if you think you can just walk away from it, think again. Jason took a step back, his mind racing. This wasn't how he thought his day would go. He'd been part of plenty of diplomatic messes before, but nothing like this. He had just made a Valeri princess pregnant by accident. And now he was stuck in a mess that was way bigger than any trade deal. I don't know how to fix this, Jason said quietly. Feeling the weight of the situation, Lyra's gaze softened, but only slightly. You will, she said simply. But first, you need to meet my mother. Jason froze. Lyra's mother was the Valeri Queen, one of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. And if Lyra was upset, her mother would be furious. This was no longer just about a diplomatic mistake. This was about a galactic empire, a royal family, and a huge mess that Jason had no idea how to get out of. But one thing was for sure. His life would never be the same again. Jason had never been more nervous in his life. Standing in the grand hall of the Valeri Palace, he felt like he was about to face a fate worse than death. The weight of Lyra's words echoed in his mind. You're going to fix this. And what exactly was this? The fact that he had somehow knocked up an alien princess by mistake. He couldn't help but feel the dread crawling up his spine as he followed Lyra down a long, glittering hallway. The walls shimmered with strange, beautiful designs that seemed to pulse with light. Everything about the palace screamed power and wealth. Jason tried to ignore the throbbing headache that had settled behind his eyes, the lingering effects of that strange fruit. But his mind wasn't focused on the palace's opulence, it was on Lyra. She walked with an air of calm confidence, her footsteps echoing softly in the hall. Jason felt like he was trailing behind her like a nervous shadow. His mind was racing. He had no idea what he was supposed to say or do now. He had just touched her arm by accident, and somehow this had led to the most unexpected consequence of his life. As they reached a large door at the end of the hallway, Lyra stopped and turned to face him. Her yellow eyes were filled with an emotion Jason couldn't quite read. Anger, yes, but there was something else beneath it. Something he couldn't quite put his finger on. Don't worry, she said, her voice surprisingly calm. You won't be alone in this. My mother will handle everything. Jason blinked in surprise. Your mother? He'd heard rumors about Lyra's mother, the Valeri Queen, but hearing the princess talk about her like this only made the situation feel even worse. He had never met someone so important in his life. The Valeri Queen was known to be ruthless, a master of political strategy, and not someone you wanted to upset. And now, Jason was about to face her because of his mistake? Yes, Lyra said, her tone more serious now. My mother will help with the ... situation. You will have to speak with her. I will not be the one to decide your fate. Jason swallowed hard. What ... What will she do? Lyra gave him a hard look. You'll find out soon enough. She didn't say another word before stepping into the room. Jason hesitated for a moment, then followed her inside. The room was enormous, far larger than any room Jason had ever seen. It looked more like a throne room than a simple meeting space. In the center of the room stood a tall chair, made of dark stone, with glowing blue veins running through it. And sitting in that chair, radiating power, was Lyra's mother, the Valeri Queen. Was every bit as intimidating as Jason had imagined. She was tall, her skin a deep, shimmering blue, her eyes glowing with a fierce light. Her hair was long and silver, falling around her shoulders like a waterfall of light. The regal air she carried was undeniable, and Jason immediately knew that. This woman could end his career with a single word. Mother, Lyra said, her voice soft but respectful. This is the human ... Mr. Jason Miller. Jason felt his legs go weak as the Queen's sharp eyes fixed on him. Her gaze felt like it could pierce through his very soul, and for a moment he couldn't breathe. She studied him for a long time. Before speaking, her voice deep and commanding. I've heard of you, human, she said. You are the one who caused this headache. Jason opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The Valeri Queen's presence was overwhelming, and he had no idea what to say. The fact that he had inadvertently knocked up her daughter had somehow made everything worse. He had no idea how to fix this. What could he possibly say to make this situation better? Lyra's mother continued, her voice smooth and controlled. My daughter is the future of our people. Her position is vital. The consequences of this ... event ... cannot be ignored. But she paused and looked at Jason, her expression unreadable. I believe you didn't intend for this to happen. Jason nodded quickly, eager to speak the truth. No, Your Majesty. I didn't. I'm really sorry. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for anything like this to happen. The Valeri Queen tilted her head slightly. That much I can tell, she said, her tone softening just a little. But the mistake has already been made. The question now is, how will you fix it? Jason blinked, caught off guard. Fix it? How? The Valeri Queen rose from her chair and walked toward him, her movements graceful and measured. You will? Marry my daughter. Jason's jaw dropped. What? Lyra gave him a hard look. You heard her. It's the only way to fix this. You'll marry me, Jason Miller, or the consequences will be far worse than you can imagine. Jason took a step back, his mind spinning. This was insane. He had accidentally gotten the princess pregnant, and now he was being told he had to marry her. He wasn't sure whether to laugh or cry. This whole situation felt like a bad dream. But ... I can't just, Jason started, but the Queen held up her hand, silencing him. You will do this, the Queen said firmly. The alliance between our peoples is fragile. Your species was already on thin ice with the Valeri before this incident. This arrangement will secure your people's future in the galaxy. Do not take it lightly, Mr. Miller. Jason swallowed hard. He had no idea what he was getting into, but he couldn't back down now. It made a mess, and now it looked like he would be cleaning it up for the rest of his life. But could he really marry Lyra? Was that even possible? The Queen's piercing gaze didn't leave him. You have no choice, Mr. Miller. You will marry my daughter, or the consequences will be dire. Jason's head spun. How had everything gone so wrong so fast? Jason stood there, speechless, staring at the Valeri Queen, still trying to process everything. Marry Lyra? Was she serious? How could he go from accidentally touching her arm to now being told he had to marry her to fix everything? His mind was racing, and his stomach felt like it was about to explode. I don't know what to say, Jason muttered, its voice barely above a whisper. The Valeri Queen's expression softened just a little, though her gaze was still intense. Learn, Mr. Miller. This is not a matter of choice. It is a matter of duty. She paused, letting her words sink in. Our people are not known for giving second chances. But I will give you one. You will marry my daughter, and you will honor this commitment. Do you understand? Jason nodded slowly, not sure if he was agreeing to something he could handle. Marrying Lyra was the last thing he ever expected. But as he glanced at Lyra, standing silently behind her mother, he could see the weight of the situation in her eyes. She was trying to stay calm, but Jason could feel the tension in the room, thick and heavy. Do not misunderstand, Mr. Miller, the Queen continued. This is not about love or desire. This is about the future of our people and the alliance between the Valeri and humanity. You are in a position to help secure that future. You will do your part. If you do not, there will be consequences. For you and your people. Jason's thoughts were spinning. He had made a mistake, an accidental touch, a fruit he had never seen before, and now his life was completely changed. He wasn't sure how he was going to pull this off, but the Queen wasn't giving him any other choice. If he didn't marry Lyra, it could destroy the delicate balance between the Valeri and humanity. He couldn't let that happen. I understand, Your Majesty, Jason said, his voice firm, despite the whirlwind in his mind. I'll do what needs to be done. The Queen gave him a sharp nod, then turned to Lyra. Take him to the chambers, Lyra. Prepare him for the next step. Lyra's yellow eyes met Jason's, and for the first time he saw a flicker of something different in them. Was it pity? Was it uncertainty? He couldn't tell. But she didn't say a word as she gestured for him to follow her. Jason had no idea what to expect. He had no idea what these next steps were, or what Lyra expected from him. As he walked beside her, he felt both nervous and confused. He didn't want to make things worse, but he wasn't sure how to navigate this alien world. Everything about the Volari was so different from anything he knew. "Lyra," he said quietly, his voice cautious, "I'm really sorry about this. I never meant for it to happen." She glanced at him, her expression still unreadable. "I know. This is not your fault entirely, Jason, but we both have roles to play now. This is the reality we face. You are my future, ... whether we want it or not." Jason sighed, his mind heavy with thoughts. "I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know how to be part of your world, Lyra." She didn't respond immediately, her face still calm, as she led him through a set of grand doors into what looked like a private chamber. The room was luxurious, but simple. Everything in it was elegant, but not overbearing. There were soft cushions, a large bed, and an atmosphere that felt strangely welcoming despite the tension hanging in the air. "Sit down," Lyra said softly, motioning to one of the cushions near the bed. Jason hesitated but sat down, unsure of what would come next. Lyra stood by the window, her back to him, looking out at the alien city below. The towering buildings shimmered with strange colors, and the sky was a shade of purple that Jason couldn't even begin to describe. It was beautiful, but it made him feel even more out of place. He wasn't supposed to be here. He wasn't supposed to be caught up in all of this. "This is not just a political move, you know," Lyra said quietly, her voice carrying over to him. "My mother has always controlled everything in my life. I have no choice in this matter. Do you think this is just about us? But it's not. It's about our people, our culture, our survival." Jason could hear the sadness in her voice. He had expected her to be angry, but now he could see that there was more to it than just anger. There was a deep sense of duty, a burden she had carried for so long that it had become part of who she was. Jason could only imagine what it was like to be the heir to such an enormous responsibility. He wanted to say something comforting, but he wasn't sure how. What could he possibly say that would make this situation any better? He didn't ask for any of this, Lyra, he said after a long pause. "But I promise I'll do my best to help you. I'll figure out a way to make this work." Lyra turned around to face him. Her eyes were no longer hard, but soft, with something Jason couldn't quite place. "You don't need to fix this, Jason. This is bigger than us. It's bigger than you. But we will have to work together. I won't make it easy for you." Jason nodded, feeling a bit of weight lifted from his shoulders. It wasn't much, but at least he wasn't alone in this anymore. If they were going to face this together, maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to make it work. Lyra walked over to the bed and sat down. She looked at him, waiting for him to join her. Jason hesitated, but eventually did, sitting down beside her. There was an awkward silence between them, but it wasn't the kind of silence that felt uncomfortable. It felt like they were both just waiting for the next step to reveal itself. Jason glanced at her, his curiosity finally getting the best of him. What now? Lyra didn't answer right away. She seemed to be thinking about it for a moment before. She finally spoke. "Now we start preparing. My mother has plans for our future, and you have to be ready for everything that comes with it." Jason nodded, though he had no idea what was in store for him. But one thing was clear: he couldn't turn back now. He was part of this, whether he liked it or not. And Lyra was part of it too. Jason woke up the next morning with a sense of dread weighing on his chest. The events of the day before played over and over in his mind like a never-ending loop. Marry Lyra. It was still hard to believe. What was he even doing here? This wasn't part of his job, and he wasn't even sure how to handle all the pressure. He had made a mistake, a big one, and now he had to face the consequences. As Jason sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window, he noticed the city. Below, the Volari capital was stunning, with its shimmering towers and floating platforms. He had seen a lot of alien cities in his time as a negotiator, but none of them had the beauty and mystique of this one. But none of that mattered right now. All he could think about was what lay ahead. A knock at the door pulled him out of his thoughts. Jason stood up quickly, still feeling disoriented, and walked over to open it. It was Lyra, her usual calm expression. In place, but there was something different about her today. Her yellow eyes looked a little softer, almost uncertain. "Are you ready?" she asked simply. Jason hesitated, not sure if he was ready for anything, but the Queen's words echoed in his mind. He had no choice but to move forward. "Ready as I'll ever be," he replied, with a weak smile. Lyra stepped inside, giving him a quick nod. "Come with me. We need to meet with my mother." Jason followed her down the long, shimmering corridors of the palace. Silence between them was thick, and Jason couldn't help but feel the weight of everything. It wasn't just the marriage, it was the future of two entire civilizations that depended on what they decided. As they reached the large meeting room, Jason saw the Queen sitting at the head of a long table. Her presence filled the space, and the air seemed to crackle with authority. She looked up when they entered, her eyes scanning Jason, as though measuring him. It was clear that she was always in control, no matter the situation. "Sit," she commanded, gesturing to a chair beside her. "We need to discuss the terms." Jason sat down, feeling a little out of place in this grand room. The Queen's eyes locked onto his, and for a moment there was a stillness in the air. He could almost feel her mind working, calculating. He had no idea what she was planning, but he was sure it wasn't going to be easy. "Jason," the Queen began, her voice steady and firm, "this marriage is more than just a simple arrangement. This union will solidify the alliance between our people. It will ensure the future of both humanity and the Valeri." Jason nodded, trying to take it all in. It still felt unreal. He was just a negotiator, a regular human who had somehow gotten caught up in the politics of two alien civilizations. "The situation," the Queen continued, "requires certain sacrifices. You will need to prove your loyalty. Your actions from now on will determine whether this alliance is successful or not." Jason swallowed hard. "What do you need me to do?" The Queen's lips curved into a small smile, but there was no warmth behind it. "You will follow our customs, Jason. You will be prepared to take on the responsibilities of your new role. This means that you will live as part of the Valeri family. Your every move will be watched. Your loyalty will be tested." Jason couldn't believe what he was hearing. This wasn't just about a marriage. This was about a complete change of life. He wasn't sure if he was ready for all of that, but he didn't have a choice. There was no turning back. "I understand," Jason said quietly. Feeling the weight of the decision settling on his shoulders, Lyra, who had been standing silently beside the Queen, spoke up.
"Oh?"
"There's more," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You will also have to prove yourself in front of my people. They will not accept you unless you show that you are worthy of this position." Jason looked at her, confusion filling his mind. "What do you mean?" "The Valeri are a proud people," Lyra explained. "They believe in strength and honor. You will have to prove that you can be a part of that. If you fail, this entire alliance could fall apart." Jason took a deep breath. This wasn't just about marrying Lyra anymore. This was about surviving in a completely foreign world. He had to find a way to prove himself both to Lyra and to the Valeri. "So what do I need to do?" Jason asked, determination creeping into his voice. "What do I have to prove?" The Queen's smile grew slightly, but it was still cold. "You will begin by participating in a series of trials. These trials are designed to test your strength, your intelligence, and your ability to adapt. If you succeed, you will be seen as a worthy partner for my daughter." Jason looked at Lyra, who was watching him with an unreadable expression. She had said that she didn't expect him to be part of this world, but now it seemed like she was testing him just as much as her mother was. "You have 2 days to prepare," the Queen said. "The trials will begin soon. Do not fail." Jason left the room with Lyra. His mind was spinning. Trials. He had no idea what these trials would entail, but he knew one thing for sure: he had to survive them. There was no going back now. Lyra led him to a smaller room where he could prepare for the trials. The room was quiet and peaceful, but Jason couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to step into something far bigger than he was prepared for. "Are you ready for this?" Lyra asked as she turned to him, her eyes searching his face. Jason swallowed hard. He didn't know if he was ready, but he knew he had no choice. "I guess I have no choice but to be ready." Lyra nodded, her expression softening just a little. "You're stronger than you think, Jason. But you'll have to be even stronger to survive these trials. You're not just fighting for yourself. Anymore, you're fighting for both our people." Jason nodded, the weight of her words sinking in. He wasn't just fighting for his life anymore. He was fighting for the future of two worlds. As Lyra left the room, Jason sat down on one of the cushions, trying to clear his mind. The trials were coming, and he had no idea what they would bring. The one thing was certain: he had to give it everything he had. There was no turning back. Jason stood in the center of the vast training arena, his heart pounding in his chest. The air around him felt thick with pressure, the kind of pressure that came with having no idea what was about to happen next. His body was tense, his muscles aching from the last few hours of physical training. The trials were unlike anything he had ever experienced, Talion. Intense and completely out of his comfort zone. Lyra stood off to the side, her gaze fixed on him. She hadn't said much during the training, but her presence was a constant reminder of why he was here. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for the future of humanity and the Valeri. The weight of it all felt suffocating at times, but Jason knew he had to push through. He didn't have a choice. The Queen's voice rang out, sharp and clear, cutting through the thick air. "Jason Miller," she called. "You have completed the first trial. But now, we move on to the next phase." Jason took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He had survived the first set of trials' physical tests that had pushed him to his limits. But he knew this next phase would be different. It would test his mind, his resolve, and his ability to adapt to a world that was nothing like his own. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes narrowing slightly as she studied him. "This phase is different," she said softly, her voice carrying just enough for Jason to hear. "It's not about strength anymore. It's about your ability to think quickly, to negotiate, and to make decisions that affect not just your life, but the lives of others." Jason nodded, trying to focus on what she was saying. Negotiation that he could handle. He had spent years doing just that in his role as a human diplomat. But this wasn't going to be the same as any meeting he had ever been in. This was a Valeri test that could determine the future of two entire species. A new figure entered the arena, tall, posing Valeri male, his dark purple skin nearly glowing under the harsh lights. He wore the distinctive armor of a high-ranking Valeri official, and his expression was one of intense focus. "Meet Commander Rix," Lyra said, her tone steady. "He is your opponent in this trial. You will negotiate with him for the survival of a group of human settlers stranded on a distant planet. Your goal is to secure their release and transport them to safety." Jason's stomach dropped. This wasn't just about surviving the trial, it was about the lives of innocent people. The pressure increased tenfold. He couldn't afford to fail. Rick stood still, his sharp eyes locked onto Jason's. "You will not get a second chance," the commander said, his voice deep and cold. "If you fail to convince me, the settlers will remain where they are. They will not survive." Jason swallowed hard, his thoughts racing. He knew how to handle high-stakes negotiations, but this was different. Valeri didn't care about human emotions or pleas for mercy. They cared about power, strategy, and honor. He would have to use everything he knew to win this one. Taking a deep breath, Jason stepped forward, locking eyes with Rix. "Commander," he began, his voice steady. "I understand the stakes here, but I believe we both want the same thing: peaceful relations between our peoples. These settlers are civilians, not soldiers. They're not a threat to you or your people." Rix didn't move, his expression unreadable. "You underestimate the value of what they possess, human. The planet they are stranded on contains resources that we need. If you want their release, you will have to offer something of equal value." Jason's heart sank. This was what he had feared, negotiating with someone who viewed everything through the lens of value. There was no room for compassion. Here, it was all about what they could gain. "I understand," Jason said, forcing himself to remain calm. "The settlers don't have much, but they can offer something even more valuable than resources and information. They've been living on that planet for years. They know things about the environment and the species that live there. That knowledge could help you in ways you can't imagine. Rix raised an eyebrow. Information. You think that is enough to persuade me? Jason nodded. Yes. Think about it. You have the chance to build a relationship with humanity, a relationship that will benefit both of us in the long run. You can't get that kind of opportunity just by taking what you want. But if you show mercy, if you release these people, you will gain something far more valuable than resources. You'll gain the trust and loyalty of a powerful ally. Rix didn't answer immediately. Silence in the room stretched on, and Jason's heart raced. He couldn't read the commander's thoughts. Was he close to convincing him, or was this all in vain? Finally, Rix spoke. You make a compelling argument, human, he said, his voice softer than before. But trust is a fragile thing. Do I know your people will honor their side of the deal? Jason took another deep breath. This was it. We will. Humanity is not perfect, but we understand the value of alliances. If you release the settlers, we will ensure that we send aid. We will make it worth your while. You have my word. Rix's gaze narrowed as he considered Jason's words. For what felt like an eternity, there was only silence. Jason's palms were sweaty, his mind a whirl of thoughts. He'd put everything on the line. If this didn't work, there would be no going back. Finally, Rix spoke again. Very well, he said. You have convinced me. The settlers will be released, and we will honor the terms of this agreement. Jason felt a rush of relief flood through him. He had done it. He had negotiated his way through the trial. But the victory wasn't just his. It was the settlers' victory as well. They would have a chance to go home, to be safe, as the room fell silent. Lyra stepped forward, her expression a mixture of pride and something else. Well done, Jason, she said quietly. You've proven yourself today. Jason glanced at her, his heart still racing. I couldn't have done it without your help, Lyra. You gave me the tools I needed. She nodded. This is only the beginning, Jason. You've earned your place here, but there's still much more to prove. And remember, I'll be watching. Jason didn't know what the future held, but for the first time since he had arrived on this alien world, he felt like he might just have a chance at making this work. The trials weren't over yet, but he had passed the hardest test. Jason had never been more nervous in his life. The day had arrived. The trials were starting. His heart raced as he walked through the long halls of the palace, his mind spinning with thoughts of what lay ahead. It was one thing to be told about the trials. It was another thing to actually face them. He had no idea what to expect, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just a test of strength. It was a test of his variability. To adapt to a world that wasn't his own, Lyra had been silent during the walk, her expression unreadable. It was hard to tell if she was rooting for him or simply watching him fail. But there was no time to ask questions now. They reached the arena, a massive open space with high walls and strange alien markings carved into the stone. The air was thick with tension, and Jason could hear the distant sounds of chanting coming from a large crowd just beyond the walls. This is where the trials will take place, Lyra said, her voice calm but firm. You need to be prepared. For anything, the Valeri do not show mercy. Jason nodded, trying to steady his nerves. The weight of the situation was heavy on his shoulders. If he failed these trials, everything would fall apart. Not only would he be jeopardizing the future of humanity, but he would also be failing Lyra, who had placed her trust in him, even if she hadn't said so directly. The gates at the far end of the arena opened, and a group of Valeri officials stepped forward. They were tall, intimidating figures dressed in dark robes, their eyes glowing with an intense, almost otherworldly light. At the front of the group was Commander Rix, the same Valeri who had tested him earlier. He was the one overseeing the trials. You will begin the first trial now, Human Commander Rix said, his voice cold and authoritative. Do not disappoint us. Jason took a deep breath and stepped forward, his muscles tense. He didn't know what the trial would involve, but he was ready to face it. He had no other choice. The ground beneath him suddenly shifted, and he was thrown off balance. A large section of the floor split open, revealing a pit below. From the pit emerged a massive creature, unlike anything Jason had ever seen before. It was a huge serpentine creature, its scales glistening like metal in the sunlight. Its eyes were an intense red, and its body coiled and hissed as it rose to its full height. Jason's heart skipped a beat. This was the first trial? Fighting a monster? Your task is simple, Commander Rick said, his voice emotionless. Defeat this creature, and the first trial will be complete. Jason felt his legs weaken beneath him. He had no experience. Fighting alien creatures? He was a diplomat, not a warrior. But as the creature's red eyes locked onto him, something clicked in his mind. He couldn't back down. He had to prove himself. Without thinking, Jason ran toward the creature, dodging its strikes as it lashed out with its massive tail. He barely managed to avoid being crushed as the tail slammed into the ground beside him. His heart raced as he tried to make sense of the situation. The creature was fast, and it was strong. He had to be smarter than it. Jason spotted a long, jagged rock lying nearby, grabbed it, and hurled it toward the creature's eyes, hoping to distract it. The rock hit its mark, causing the creature to roar in pain, but it didn't stop. It turned toward him with renewed fury, its mouth opening to reveal rows of sharp teeth. Think, Jason, he muttered to himself, struggling to stay focused. Then, an idea struck him. He remembered the stories he'd heard during his training, how the Valeri admired cleverness and quick thinking. If he could outsmart the creature, it would prove that he wasn't just a fighter. He could be something more. Jason dodged another strike from the creature's tail and sprinted toward a nearby pillar. Climbed it quickly, using every ounce of strength in his arms and legs. The creature followed him, its body twisting as it tried to reach him. Jason had to move fast. When the creature lunged toward him again, Jason jumped off the pillar, landing on its back. He grabbed onto its scales, his heart pounding as he tried to maintain his grip. The creature bucked and writhed beneath him, but Jason held on tight. He reached for the creature's neck, finding a weak spot near its throat. With all his strength, he drove the sharp rock into the creature's neck, and it let out a final, painful cry before collapsing to the ground. Lifeless, Jason rolled off the creature and landed on the ground with a thud. He was out of breath, his body aching, but he had done it. He had survived the first trial. The crowd erupted in applause, and Jason stood up, wiping the sweat from his brow. He couldn't believe what he had just done. But as he looked over at Lyra, he saw something different in her eyes. Pride. Maybe, just maybe, he was proving himself after all. Well done, Human Commander, Rick said, his tone grudgingly respectful. You have passed the first trial. Jason nodded, still trying to catch his breath. What's next? Lyra stepped forward, her expression serious once again. The second trial is one of diplomacy. We'll have to convince the leaders of the Valeri Council to support your people's future in this galaxy. Jason's eyes widened. A test of diplomacy? This was his area of expertise, but he knew it wouldn't be easy. Convincing a group of alien leaders, especially the Valeri, to trust humanity wasn't going to be a walk in the park. You've already proven you can handle yourself in a fight, Lyra continued. But now, you need to prove that you can. Handle the political challenges ahead. If you fail here, all your efforts will be for nothing. Jason nodded again, determination growing in his chest. He had come this far, and he wasn't going to stop now. He had to finish what he started. As he followed Lyra to the next stage of the trials, Jason knew that everything was on the line. He had faced the first trial and survived. But the true test of his strength, intelligence, and diplomacy was only just beginning.